Let's talk about schools.
Let's.
They're on the mind of every parent.
Yes, they are.
At this point, I think we'll take anything.
The state has a plan for getting students back in the classroom. We're taking it 360.
It would mean the world.
Plus, everything you ever wanted to know about the vaccine and were unafraid to ask.
This is a great question.
A Colorado attorney turned legal advisor for President Trump is found to have lied about her past. The U.S. Supreme Court sides with Weld County Church and against Governor Polis.
Susana Cordova discusses her time at DPS and her decision to leave.
Was it a hostile work environment? Oh, I didn't feel like it was a hostile environment.
And we remember Paul Carey, an Aurora firefighter who lived his life for others.
Gave everything that he possibly could. So there's no reason for us to not do the same thing for him and his family.
And good evening, and thanks for watching Denver7. I'm Ann Trujillo.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. Tonight's 360 coverage begins with an unprecedented push by Governor Polis and Metro superintendents to resume in-person learning.
And this can't happen a moment too soon. A report from the Colorado Department of Education finds that 30,000 fewer students were enrolled in 2020 as compared to 2019. It is the first year-to-year drop, I should say, in enrollment in Colorado since the 1980s. Governor Polis, whose first campaign promise was full-day kindergarten, does not want to see education slide on his watch.
He insists in-person learning can be done safely, and he says he has the data to show it.
10 months into this pandemic, we've learned a lot about the virus, about infection patterns, and we now know that schools are relatively low-risk environments for kids and for educators. That's wonderful and welcome news.
Well, the superintendents of Colorado's largest school districts are all in. Today, they called a meeting of the minds to discuss what it would take to get students back in the classroom.
Denver7 CB Cotton listened in on their conversation. And CB, the top issue these superintendents want to see addressed is staffing.
Shannon and Ann, that's right. And, you know, when districts have tried to return to in-person learning, they've struggled because of mandatory quarantines and testing delays. And now these superintendents say they've got a plan to keep things going. Denver Public Health is calling that plan, quote, layered protection. It's a concept of using social distancing, mask wearing, and testing to keep students and teachers safe. Thanks to a partnership with COVID Check Colorado, come January, there will be free testing to students and teachers with faster results. Superintendents added that new CDC guidelines will also allow for educators and students to return from quarantine quicker with a negative test result. DPH Executive Director Bill Burma emphasized that schools aren't super spreaders.
Youngest children have lower risks of becoming infected with COVID. Secondly, young kids particularly appear to have a lower chance of transmitting COVID to others.
Now, as we've been telling you, teachers here in the Denver Metro and across the state are included in the phase 2 for the vaccine distribution. This afternoon, superintendents emphasized that teachers won't be required to take it, but they're going to advocate for them to have immediate access beginning at phase 2 if the teacher chooses to do so. Reporting live, I'm CB Cotton, Denver7.
All right, thank you, CB. And parents and teachers are all about kids returning to class. With that, Denver7's Sean Toll.
Page 3. It would mean the world.
It's no secret many parents have been pushing to get their kids back in the classroom.
They're bouncing off the walls during their class, and you can only force your kid to sit in front of the computer so much. You know, you can't hook them there.
So hearing news that there's a bigger push from the state is huge for them.
It does make me feel better. It makes me, it reassures me that we're actually looking at the bigger picture.
And let's be clear, teachers want to be back too, but safely.
We first need to create a dashboard. So when is it going to be safe for everybody to go back into school? We want to go back in school.
DPS teacher Judy Kelly lost a student to COVID in the spring, so it weighs heavy as schools look to return.
We know we need to get the kids back in. We know for the elementary, we need it for educational, but also social development. We know for our older students, it's mental health issues, you know, and but we need to have a matrix.
That matrix is part of a number of things teachers are hoping for before returning to class.
Educators need access to PPE, COVID testing, the transparent sharing of data.
They also believe educators should be in phase 2 of vaccinations as another safeguard, as parents believe returning would be huge for their kids' mental health.
Like I had an issue dropping my son off with grandma today, who is not very tech savvy. So if he could just go to school, just the sheer joy that I think I would see from him would be phenomenal.
All as they hope Tuesday's first step becomes a giant leap back into the classroom. Sean Toll, Denver7.
Now it is your turn to weigh in. Let us know how you feel about this rush to resume in-person classes with an email to 360@thedenverchannel.com. Also, bonus points if that perspective is that of a student.
Superintendent Susana Cordova will not be around to lead Denver Public Schools into the new year. Cordova's final day will be December 31st. And while she describes her departure from the district where she's worked for 31 years as bittersweet, she's proud of her 2 years at the top, growing graduation and literacy rates, even in a pandemic. And she told me today, though, she also has regrets.
I would have tried to get kids back in person a lot faster. One of my big regrets is I think we lost a window of opportunity for kids to be in person in the early fall. And I think that's been really challenging for our students and for our families.
Cordova also addressed why she left after 2 years. She said it was not a hostile work environment and that she was not mistreated. Instead, she said it was just time for a change. And she would have rather not been superintendent during a teacher strike and pandemic.
Well, last week we asked you if you had questions about the coronavirus vaccine, and boy, do you ever.
Oh, we have received close to 100 just since yesterday morning. One of the most popular, can a vaccinated person still spread the virus?
Well, Dr. Elizabeth Carlton with the Colorado School of Public Health says the jury's still out on that one.
This is a great question. And the answer that we have, I'll tell you like the unfiltered answer. And so right now, because all these vaccines have been, these trials have been done with efficiency in mind, the primary thing they've looked at is whether or not they prevent you from getting sick. And that's where we see this strong signal that if you get the vaccine, you are essentially protected from getting sick, having any symptoms, showing up at the hospital, dying from COVID, which is great, fantastic news. What they are still looking at data on is whether it actually prevents you from becoming infected and becoming a carrier of the disease. It's not right now, it's not that it's unknown, right? We think from a biological plausibility standpoint that it will prevent you from transmitting the disease as well, based on our understanding of other vaccines. But that's where the science is just not settled yet. They're working on this. And so that's where these recommendations are still coming, that, you're still going to be asked to wear a mask and social distance, at least for the next couple months as we work out this last piece of the vaccine.
And I want to add here, we may owe Dr. Carlton a Christmas gift. She consistently makes time to answer our COVID questions, and she does it in a way that, as you see there, it's just easy to understand.
We so appreciate her. But it's not just the health aspect of the vaccine that needs addressing. Many of you want more specifics on how the distribution process will play out. And for that, we've brought in Governor Polis. Our 30-minute conversation on the vaccine begins right after this broadcast ends. Meanwhile, COVID cases are down in Colorado. Deaths, however, are up. The state says another 132 people have died as a direct result of the virus. It was likely a factor in another 116. In Pueblo, refrigerated trucks have been brought in to act as morgues. Otherwise, the data is improved. 2,200 cases were confirmed today, and you have to go back to early November to see numbers like that. At 1,500 beds in use, hospitals are having their best night since November 17th.
Well, tonight, Longmont City Council will demand Weld County comply with the state health department. So Longmont sits in both Weld and Boulder counties. And leaders point out that Boulder's positivity rate has fallen dramatically since adopting level red restrictions. Weld's has not.
The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in favor of an Eaton church that sued the state over capacity limits. Now, the Polis administration saw this one coming from a mile away, recently ordered religious institutions to be classified as critical businesses.
Well, Trump attorney Jenna Ellis testified about the importance of election integrity at the Colorado State Capitol today, on a day when her own integrity is being questioned. The Colorado Sun has obtained documentation showing that Ellis lied about why she was fired from her position as a Weld County prosecutor in 2013. Ellis told the Wall Street Journal she was let go because she refused to bring a case to trial because of a conflict of ethics. In reality, Ellis was fired for making mistakes and for, quote, unsatisfactory performance. She also mostly handled traffic cases and misdemeanors. The Trump campaign calls the Sun's article a non-story designed to damage Ellis's reputation. We recommend you just read it for yourself.
Denver's iconic Larimer Square officially belongs to a company out of North Carolina. Asana Partners announced today it has acquired 25 properties that make up the city's first historic district. Asana already owned 4 buildings along Tennyson. And Larimer Square, certainly a great place to get in some holiday shopping.
As are the 7 businesses listed in our colorful Christmas gift guide. You'll find that under the We're Open section of thedenverchannel.com.
And we promise no one's going to complain about a gift basket filled with food. And if they do, well, you know, you don't need that person in your life.
Quieter conditions for now, but there is some snow in the extended forecast.
And down he goes! The Broncos manhandled Teddy Two Gloves. Josh Allen may prove more of a challenge. We'll hear from the players after the break.
And we'll remember a firefighter who gave his all for anyone and everyone.
Paul was a great person. He sacrificed his entire life from beginning to end.